6 Vashkari security officers lay in a precise arc across the reception hall floor. Compound eyes dimmed to amber slits. Biosigns pulsing steady green on Drathy's wrist monitor. At the center of the formation, a human woman held a silver tea tray, 14 cups, not one displaced. She looked directly at him with those flat, single-lens eyes. I think they slipped. Her gloves were still on. Stories like this show up when you least expect them. If you're new here, subscribe so you don't miss the next one. Now, back to 4 hours before that floor was full of unconscious guards. That same sharp scent of Velurin bergamot. Sarah Kaney had been steeping it 4 hours earlier in the embassy kitchen. Arranging 14 cups on a silver tray with a focused Drathy would only recognize later as something other than hospitality. He'd barely registered her that morning. The pre-reception security briefing had consumed everything. 14 diplomats from 6 species, a credible assassination threat flagged by intersystem intelligence, and Ambassador THR demanding that security remain invisible, so the proceedings would not appear militarized. Drathy had assigned 6 guards to the perimeter, 2 to the service corridors, and positioned himself in the secondary monitoring room with Lieutenant Sue, where a grid of 42 camera feeds covered every angle of the hall. Sarah Kaney appeared on feed 17, kitchen staff, domestic clearance level 1. She carried the silver tray through the service corridor and entered the reception hall at 14:07 station time. Drathy's gaze moved past her to the Draci delegate, whose security detail kept touching their sidearm holster. Sue noticed first. Commander. His cracked eye lens caught the overhead light as he leaned toward feed 22. The human server. Watch her path. Drathy watched. Sarah moved between diplomats, offering tea, head slightly bowed, expression neutral. But she never bumped a shoulder, never adjusted course with a visible correction. She slipped between 2 Gestral delegates whose combined mass blocked the aisle, and the gap she threaded could not have exceeded 12 centimeters on either side. The tray never tilted. Spatial awareness is elevated, Sue said, pulling up her file. Unusually so. Drathy studied it. Sarah Kaney, age 31, diplomatic aide, assigned to service staff rotation. Physical assessment standard. A prior employer, government services. No flags, no secondary clearances, no combat training listed. She's a tea server, Sue. Yes, Commander. But Sue's mandibles hadn't relaxed. And Drathy, who had held his security post for 11 years without a single breach, felt something small and cold settle at the base of his thorax. Not alarm. Not yet. Something more like a question he didn't know how to phrase, prompted by the way her wrists stayed level through every turn, by the way she poured without looking at the cup, by the calluses he could not see beneath the white gloves, but somehow suspected were there, because her fingers wrapped that tray the way his own wrapped a shock lance, with a grip trained into the tendons long before conscious thought had any say in the matter. He dismissed it. He had 14 diplomats, a credible threat. And Ambassador THR's voice crackled through comms, reminding him that the guest delegation found visible security culturally offensive. 3 minutes later, the east wall exploded inward. Drathy was out of his chair before the dust cleared the feeds. Sue scrambled behind him, pulling data from every sensor in the hall. By the time Drathy reached the east corridor, his 6 perimeter guards were already converging through the main entrance. 11.3 seconds from breach to armed response, within Vashkari's standard. It should have been enough. A low crunch of settling debris, then silence. Drathy rounded the corner into the reception hall and stopped. 3 bodies near the east wall. Attackers, their breaching gear still smoking, limbs folded at wrong angles and spread in a wide arc between overturned chairs and shattered drink stations. His 6 guards, all 9 motionless, all 9 breathing. In the center of the hall, Sarah Kaney held the silver tea tray. 14 cups, upright, liquid still trembling faintly from some vibration that had already passed through her body and gone still. She looked at him with an expression he could not read. Sue's voice came through comms, thin and tight. Commander, I have the footage. They reviewed it frame by frame in the monitoring room while medical teams cleared the hall. Sue's eyes stayed fixed on the display. Frame 1212. Sarah's are still concealed. Frame 1212. Sarah's trajectory changes. For frames before the breach. She had read it from micro-movements. A shift in posture. A hand drifting 2 centimeters too far left. Weight redistributing in preparation for a draw. Her body responded before the attackers had committed to the act. Drathy ran her biometrics through a deep tissue scan, and the results made Sue step back from the console. Muscle memory density beyond the scanner's calibrated range. The human cerebellum, Drathi learned that afternoon, could store thousands of combat sequences as automated motor routines, executable without conscious thought. Her reaction time registered at 147 milliseconds. His best guard clocked 340. She had identified, engaged, and neutralized 9 targets. 3 attackers and 6 guards she could not distinguish from threats in a darkened, dust-filled hall. In 4.2 seconds, with a T-tray. How does a species build something like that into a server's muscle fiber? Sue asked, pulling her employment file. Prior employer, government services. He requested the full record classified. Classified, 73 mission entries. Every single one classified. And now, in that same hall, under emergency lighting that turned the polished floor amber, Sarah still held the tray. Drathi's mandibles parted, but she spoke first. The tea is getting cold. Should I pour? Her pulse, visible on his wrist monitor, read 62 beats per minute. Resting. She was at resting heart rate. She had dismantled 9 combatants in the time it took Drathi to stand from his chair, and her body treated it the way his treated walking, automatic routine, stored so deep in the motor cortex that conscious thought never entered the process. Drathi filed his first security breach report in 11 years. Not because the embassy had been attacked, but because a T-server had disassembled his entire response team as collateral. He typed the final line slowly, each keystroke deliberate. Recommend immediate reclassification of human domestic staff. All of them. The reception hall sat empty long after the last medical shuttle departed. Chairs overturned, glass fragments ground into the stone floor, where boots had pivoted on the serving counter untouched by cleanup crews. The silver tea tray, 14 cups in position. Not a single drop spilled underneath. If anyone thought to turn it over, too dense in the metal, knuckle-shaped. Nobody noticed. Tomorrow we've got a story about a species that tried to outrun something humans built in a garage.